Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's dive in. So in my 2021 intro episode, The Lady Behind the Microphone, which I recently re-listened to, and hold up, I talked a little bit about my time split with my executive and the numbers that came out at about 10% personal assistant work, 40% business operations work, and about 50% left over for executive assistant, miscellaneous, just everything that might crop up in any given day, week, month, year. I know it's going to be different and absolutely was different back then. On any given day, it might be a split of, it might be just 100%. You're working heads down, focused on one thing. Tomorrow might be a 50-50 split. You've got one big project, but you really have to devote some time to an upcoming trip and make sure that all the pieces are in order. It might be a 30-30-30-10 split, just a little dash of something extra. I know it's going to be different, but by and large, those were kind of my major categories: 10% personal assistant, 40% business operations, and about 50% of my time was executive assistant and any miscellaneous odds and ends that might pop up. It's 2024. Things are a little different. I live in a different state, different time zone. Time has progressed. We are a little bit further outside of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is fantastic. My percentages have shifted a bit. I would say right now it's about 15% personal assistant work, about 15% business operations, about 40% executive assistant and the miscellaneous day-to-day stuff that pops up. And newly, I would say about 30% of my time goes to events, specifically in the Pokemon related sphere. I mentioned in a previous episode that my executive did a hard pivot during the pandemic into the Pokemon trading card game space and now has a pretty large YouTube channel, very active and engaged community. We put on our first card party last year in June of 2023 in Anaheim, California, putting on the second one this year in June 2024 in Miami. No, shoot, I keep saying Miami. It's still Orlando. It's still the Orlando Hilton. Anyhow. So that's been a big change, which is great on so many fronts. One, it's a new niche. It's something exciting and different. And you can just tell that Pat's really energized by it, all of it, and learning a lot as we go and just building a really strong, engaged and dedicated community over there. I met some really incredible people at the first event who are never going to leave my life from here on out, which is just incredible. Something that I really never thought would happen, especially at a Pokemon event. But it's just great to see events coming back. 2020 was supposed to be a pretty banner year for us in terms of travel for conferences, in terms of producing our own events, lots of live workshops in the slate for 2020, 2021, and all of that kind of got pushed to the wayside. So really wonderful to have that coming back. Live events live events are some of the best work that Pat and I do together, which is great. We're both just really passionate about people having a great experience. Pat is a really wonderful storyteller. I'm very white glove event experience from start to finish, shock and delight, all that good stuff. So it just really creates something special when Pat and I get together and put on an event. In terms of the personal assistant work, it's crept up a little bit since 2021 rather. Pat is very fortunate that his wife is a stay-at-home parent, so she takes care of a lot of their personal logistics. We also no longer live in the same state, so it's not really practical for me to be the person who waits for the plumber, that kind of thing. So really great to see it tick up just a little bit in the ensuing years, and hopefully that will continue as the family continues to travel a bit more. But right now I feel like the 15% is pretty great, especially considering I would say the first few years Pat and I worked together, my personal assistant support was zero. Like I just didn't handle any of it. So as the relationship has grown and matured over the years, it's been really wonderful to get to do a little bit more of the personal assistant work that I'm so passionate about. Business operations down, used to be 40% in 2021. I would say we're down to about 15% on the biz ops side. The work is still there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get smaller to operate a business, even when it's a very small company. But back in 2021, when I last spoke about my time split, it was a sharp learning curve. A lot of things that I never really thought were going to fall on my plate did. A lot of accounting work, a lot of payroll, benefits, 401k, all of that stuff that just I really had no interest in and really never wanted to tackle, just kind of fell on my plate. And it was hard in 2021 and definitely felt bigger than it was at the time. But like anything, when you're learning new skills, it just feels so much bigger than it actually is. So at this point, I would say our business operations have really been streamlined over the years. I've learned a lot more, so it feels like a lot less. I have really great systems and processes in place. I have great working relationships with our legal team, with our accounting firm, and with any other external parties that we work with. We have a handful of contractors. We have a couple more employees than we did back in 2021. So the administrative stuff is still there in terms of running the back end of the business, but it just feels good, feels like I've learned a lot, feels like I've gotten into a big groove. So it's not something that I'm stressing out about from day to day or week to week or month to month. It's just kind of there, and all of the different vendors that help us, give me great reminders and help me stay compliant on any professional or legal things that need to happen. And yeah, it just feels a lot less than it had in the past, which is great. And it feels really wonderful to have learned a lot of new skills. That's something in the executive assistant sphere that it's sometimes really hard to nail down exactly what your job is, because it's so different from company to company, executive to executive. And you kind of have some bleed into a lot of different areas. Like in my next chunk of time, the executive assistant and the miscellaneous stuff, I touch on podcast production. I touch on all kinds of scheduling with all kinds of different external parties. Like it just, I do a lot of travel. It's a lot of travel management, rather. I don't get to travel with Pat quite as much as I would like to. He's very self-sufficient, which is wonderful and frustrating on the same token. Wonderful because that means I can just ship him off an itinerary in hand, and he just knows that from takeoff to touchdown and getting back home, everything's taken care of. Frustrating because I love visiting new places. I wish that I could go with, but again, it really works out that I then get to spend more time at home. If you had talked to me in 2019 and said 4 years from now, 5 years from now, you are going to be such a homebody you don't even know, I would have absolutely laughed in your face. I was on an airplane absolutely every month of every year for several years, a couple times a month. I don't travel near as much as some people do, but I traveled a lot personally, professionally, and it was hard to throw the brakes on in 2020 and spend a lot of time not going places, but just relationships with my family, with my cats, with my husband, the move from California to New York and developing the relationship with my sister and her family. I really love spending time not traveling now, which is so strange. We've just developed some really great routines around family time, developed some really strong relationships in our neighborhood with all of our neighbors, all of our new friends, and just a lot of things that revolve around. I get to pick up my niece every week from school once a week. We have family dinner at our house once a week. And anytime that I'm out of town and missing one of those, I definitely have FOMO for what's going on at home, when it definitely used to be FOMO for whatever was happening not at home. And then I kind of touched on the 30%, the Pokemon and the event sphere earlier. Again, 2020, 2021 were supposed to be huge years for us professionally in terms of events. The Pokemon pivot, unexpected, but very cool. Very neat to see Pat getting really jazzed about a new project. Like he's still very much a person, multi-hyphenate, he's a blogger, podcaster, speaker, author, YouTuber, whatever other number of descriptors you might want to attach to him. He's done a lot over the years, and he, I think, is a lot like me in terms of he doesn't want to be doing just one thing, even though he does talk a lot about niching down and getting, upping your skills in a certain space. He definitely has his fingers in a lot of different projects and ideas and is always trying new things, which is great. It's really fun to always be learning and growing together. I've said it before, I'll say it again. No 2 days are the same, and I absolutely would not trade that for the world. So that's where my time split is right now. I would love to hear from all of you. Drop me a note, askanassistant.com. Would love to hear what your time split looks like, how it stacks up against mine, some of your favorite things to do. Honestly, I love the split that I have right now, but in a truly, truly ideal world, I would love to be somewhere more in like 50% personal assistant and like 50% event support, like maybe even 60 or 70% personal assistant, and then the remaining 30 to 40% event support. Like I love all the people that we work with. I love the work that I do. I love the split that I have right now. But honestly, to hand off some of the day-to-day, like especially the business operations stuff, to hand off a lot of the moving pieces of the business would just be so dreamy. And I know that's not for everybody. I've done stuff in the personal sphere for other clients where like I've managed 3 different contractors in their house and took their pet to the vet. Not everybody gets really excited about that kind of stuff. Not everybody loves to plan doctor's appointments and get cars washed. I love doing that stuff. I just love helping people do the things that they don't have time to do or don't have the interest to do. I do a lot of that personally in my life, but I would really love for my work to edge more into the personal assistant space again someday. So again, drop me that note, askanassistant.com. Tell me about your work split. Tell me what your work split is now, and tell me what your work split, like your ideal dreamy dream world work split might look like. Askanassistant.com. Keep in mind, the only stupid question is the question that you don't ask. We'll see you next week. Take care.